Welcome to the LyfeBe podcast. In every episode, we dive into the most relatable aspects of life, helping you navigate the complexities of our contemporary world. Let's get started.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are across the world. It's an honor to be on your screen, your tablet, your phone, your computer, wherever you're watching this. And we're back with another episode of LyfeBe, where we just talk about life and what's happening with your life, inspirational stories, stories of hope, stories of despair, solutions, conversations that touch people's life. And basically to celebrate people's lives, people that are having impact, people that are causing change in their spaces, which could be media, entertainment, fashion, whatever it is. We're here to have the conversations with you. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome with me, Mr. Felix Byaruhanga. Because in Uganda, Africa, we start with your last name.
Yeah.
Mr. They used to tell us in school, you cannot say Mr. Sami. You start with the other. So in our setting, I'm supposed to start with Mr. Byaruhanga.
Yes.
Philip. Welcome to LyfeBe podcast.
Thank you for having me. Just like a small correction, it's Byaruhanga Felix.
Felix,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
Philip.
Yeah.
Sorry, Felix Byaruhanga.
Yes.
My bad.
Thanks for having me.
I know you don't like to sit behind cameras. You like to make things happen under the shadows, but it's an honor to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about yourself, Felix.
Like you introduced me to the viewers, my name is Felix Byaruhanga. I'm Ugandan because I know you reach a lot audience. I'm Ugandan and I like to call myself a creative industrialist. What that means is that I like to monetize creativity. And I do that under my company called Skyline Media Management Limited. And under it, we have a brand called the LyfeBe that is probably the household brand that people know us for. Through there, we've done a bunch of things in terms of adding value to the industry, a part of that is the creative and culture industry. So mainly through the hip hop genre, that's where we've had more impact and more reach through the different things we've done. We started as a website. And years later, we did the first Uganda Hip Hop Awards in the country and the first in the East African region.
Wow.
We proceeded to do a digital magazine.
You're going too fast. You're going too fast. You're squeezing the whole podcast into a sentence.
Yeah.
Go slow. Let's give us the whole CV and then we'll piggyback on point by point.
Yeah. From the awards, then we launched the press play is like an artist incubation.
Yes.
But instead of walking away with a certificate, you walk away with a free music video. We have a LyfeBe podcast where we pretty much share the knowledge and insights of how people can navigate the industry with different guests that we bring on board. And we've had some major sort of like traction and milestones. We got featured on Forbes Africa and then also on CNN inside Africa.
Hey, hold on. You've been on Forbes.
The company has been on Forbes. Yeah.
That's money. How old are you again?
I'm 30. I made 30 early Jan.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're pushing huge milestones at 30.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
We are trying.
You're not trying. With the things you've said, that's not trying. That's like doing.
Yeah.
I think you should be saying we're doing.
I think for me personally, I believe I haven't reached that point of saying we are doing. I think when we reach that point, I will say, okay, we are doing this. But I believe right now we are still putting in the work to make sure that we are prepared for that time when it comes.
Okay. So where does your love for events come from? I know you've done a few events. You said you've done the first hip hop award. Let's talk about hip hop.
Yeah.
I've heard about you guys from a friend of mine called Tom. The Myth.
Yeah.
That's how I heard about LyfeBe. So how does the hip hop awards come up? Like, what piqued your interest to do this, and where did the whole concept come from?
So when I was at university, I was in a board lecture and I started a blog.
A board
lecture.
Wait, you were in a lecture room
Yeah.
and your lecturer was boring.
Yeah. Basically, I was
Typical
pretty much
creative.
bored, and then I decided to start a blog.
Okay.
That's the LyfeBe blog. And the purpose was to document Ugandan hip hop, because at that particular moment in time, the mainstream media was only covering the big names in hip hop. Yet there was a lot of talent that was not being covered. So the idea was to have this one central place where everyone is welcome, as long as you love Ugandan hip hop, as long as you are part of Ugandan hip hop. You can come to this place and get to know what's happening in the industry. So that blog snowballed in the sense that we ended up creating a community of people who are creating the music and people who are consuming the music.
Nice.
So that means we're interviewing artists. These are artists who will never get like an interview on a mainstream platform, but us, we decided to give them a priority. And then, of course, because we are giving them a priority, then people who are looking for them, they also came to that place. So in a way, we quote unquote became the authority, because that's how people are looking at us, the authority of Ugandan hip hop. And then when we reached that point, like I think we started in 2013, then in 2016, then we were like, okay, it's time to sort of like monetize this community that we've built, and also to take the community a bit from online, and then at least we have an on-ground thing that where people can meet, people can get to know, because here you are on a screen, you're exchanging messages, you're commenting. So that's when we decided to be like, okay, now we can then do the Hip Hop Awards.
What do you mean when you say we decided to monetize it?
Yeah. So by monetizing for us, so when we got in the industry, there were one of the issues or one of the challenges that were being talked about was hip hop doesn't make money.
Okay.
Yeah. So us, when we came in and they were telling us that, we're like, no, hip hop should make money and hip hop can make money. The only difference is us, when the position we were sitting in is that we were looking at the entire industry. We're not looking at one artist alone. Okay. So whatever we do has to cater for the entire industry. So what that means is that when we bring partners on board, these partners, sponsors, they are putting money not in one person, but the entire industry. Because
that's beautiful.
Yeah, because the awards, you are looking at the entire industry. You are nominating on average 5 people in one category. You have 20 categories. Those are 100 artists. Each 100 artists, each person is coming with, let's say on average, with 1,000 fans. So we need that one place where even if, let's say today, I hire Sami-K to be the MC of the awards, that money that has come has not gone to me, it will go to Sami, but at least that's money that has been put in the industry. And choosing on what Sami, depending on what Sami decides to do with the money, he can either put it back in the industry by bettering his craft, or he can decide to go take it home and improve his lifestyle, his livelihood. So that's how we saw it in terms of monetizing. And for us, that has been the trajectory we've been taking, in that whatever money comes to us, it's not coming to us per se, it's coming to the industry, because we work with different people. Today it's a videographer, tomorrow it's an audio producer. So that's how we look at monetizing on our end.
Oh, that's great. Who has been one of your biggest successes as LyfeBe?
So that's an interesting question, because when we started operating, people started to look to us for answers. So and then that's how we ended up growing, in the sense of we have a company. So people looked at us for licensing music. How can I place my music on iTunes, on Spotify? So we started doing that. How can I get my music in a movie, in a TV advert? Like that, we started doing that. So we ended up starting to offer what we call record label services, even if we're into a record label. So one of our prominent successes, I would like to say, is Rachel Ray. Because we met Rachel when she was not known, like at all. And then when we were doing the Hip Hop Awards, then we had a campaign running called the MTN Sci-Fi. You download the beat, rap on it, get paid by MTN if you happen to be the winner. So that year she wasn't the winner. However, she was like the only female who participated. So at night to the event, I call MTN. I'm like, hey, look, she's the only lady who participated. Can we do something for her? Back then, we still had airtime scratch cards, sort of like to load airtime. Yeah. So they were like, hey, we have some airtime worth 2 million that stayed from the Radio and Weasel concert. I think we can give it to her. I'm like, perfect. So she comes on I tell her, hey, get to the awards. And she's like, I don't have transport. I don't have a ticket. I'm like, don't worry about that. Just get to the awards. Everything will be taken care of. So she thought she's just coming to attend. Then when she gets there, they read her name. She goes on stage. She meets MTN CMO at that time. They give her the airtime. Fast forward
2 million
worth of
shillings
airtime.
worth of.
Yeah.
They're going to call the
So
whole world from January
fast
to
forward
December.
a year later,
Uh-huh.
she comes back and she has around 4 nominations in the same awards.
Wow.
She ends up winning 2.
Wow.
She ends up winning 2. A year later, again, we sign her on a content licensing agreement. We license her content in Uganda and out of Uganda. She comes back a year later and she ends up winning another award for being the most selling artist under the content we were licensing. Fast forward to the pandemic, a lot of artists are not performing, are not accessing venues, but her content was still performing very well. So during the pandemic, we are sending money to her manager to be like, hey, here's what you guys have made. So for us, it's one of the people I look at, I'm like, hey, that's a success for us.
That's a big success.
Yeah, but then also for us, I'm like, the industry all itself, in a way, it's a success for us, because if we are still here, we are still trying to add value to it. For me, if you look at how many people are rapping back then to how many people are rapping now, how many people are monetizing back then, how many people are monetizing now, how many hip-hop websites did we have back then, now we have more than 5. So for me, that's a success. And in a way, we may have sparked the idea for someone else to be like, hey, I can do this. So to me also, that's how I see success.
Great. Content, what did you call it?
Content licensing.
Yeah. That's a sore thumb in many ears.
Yeah.
What do you mean by content licensing, and how do you do this now that there's very many I wouldn't want to say inconsequential conversations. It probably will be consequential, but there's so much conversation around content licensing, copyright, and people are making noise and then giving up, making noise and then giving up, and then revisiting the idea. Then every now and then somebody comes up like they're offering a solution that doesn't quite make sense to others. What is your stake in that, and how do you deal with that? I'd like to know, because that's something that many people have asked and they never quite get the right answers. Yeah,
so our approach is simple. Our approach is based on 2 things. 1, education. 2, transparency. So by educating, I mean us. The people, before we approach the artists, we have to be educated.
So it's like sensitization pretty much.
So it's the education is 2-sided.
Okay.
Before I come to Sami-K, I have to first educate myself on what I'm going to talk to Sami-K about.
Okay.
When I approach Sami-K, I have to educate him what I know.
Okay.
Or if I find Sami-K already knowing, I just add on to what he knows. So after then we jump into the contractual obligations, and then now that's where transparency comes in.
Which are what? Hold on. You're speaking big words. To you, they're normal because it's your field.
Yeah.
But to an artist that's just starting out there, to a layman, to somebody who just hears songs, they wouldn't understand what all these terms are. And that's why I'm trying to slow you down so we can push those buttons.
So the way I like to look at it is this one. The way I like to tell it to artists or creatives is like this. So the song you've created is a property. It's an asset. So in this case, it's an apartment building, let's say, or it's a building. So I come to you, I'm like, hey, Sami-K, look, you have this building. I can get tenants for you. Tenants who give you money either monthly or every quarter, depending on our agreement. Yes. And I tell you, and I tell you, hey, look, you can make me your exclusive representative, in the sense that every tenant out there in the world has to go through me. Or you can keep it open in the sense that any other tenant out there, they can speak to someone else, probably another, in this case, another publishing agent, in this case, to access your content or to access your building, in this case. So you tell me what you want, either to I represent you exclusively, or you multiple people. So after then, once we agree, you tell me, okay, Felix, you have this building for 3 years. Make sure in these 3 years, it's occupied. Once every tenant you bring to me, you take we do a revenue share, which is sometimes 70-30, 80-20, depending on the agreement. So now then me and the team on our side, we then get to work. We get to work in terms of marketing the asset to make sure that it gets tenants. And then also the tenants we get, we make sure they are sort of like, for lack of a better word, let me say long term. they're not going to come in your building for 1 month, 2 months, and then they go. It's sort of like 3 months. Then also the other thing we try to do is that if, let's say, a tenant came to you directly and let's say you want us to come in and negotiate for you, because we also do that. We come in and we negotiate for you so that you get a higher pay. Instead, let's say a tenant was giving you 250,000, but you feel you should get 500,000. Then you call us in and then we push for 500,000. And then wherever we land with a tenant, we come back to you and you're like, hey, Sammy, this is where we landed. Is it okay? It's not okay. And then you make a decision. At the end of the day, it's your decision. That's if the tenant came to you. So in brief, that's how I explain it to people. So the only difference is now that us, when we come in, it's a song, and then we are exploiting different rights, because as a building, you may be like, if you move into my building, you can repaint it how you want. If you move into my building, don't repaint it.
You're saying big words. You're exploiting different rights.
Yeah.
So what are these rights? Let's break down. Now you're educating me. That's why I'm asking. What rights normally do you encounter to deal with your clients who are the artists?
So normally the artists that we encounter, most of the rights we take on are sync rights.
Okay.
Sync rights, these are rights that you give us to sort of like put your song in a TV advert, in a movie, and things like that.
Okay.
So of course, like any artist, most of them have big expectations. You tell them we are going to put it in a movie. It's like, Hollywood.
I'm seeing dollars.
Yeah. But us, what thing we have tried to do is that we have tried to engage local creators here. Because the thing is, we have to sort of like build each other's industry.
Yes.
Like, yes, you may not pay us $50,000 for a song, but there's some money you can give us, because at the end of the day, if let's say this movie performs well, the song also gets to reach a wider audience and a wider market. And we've seen success stories in that way, where songs have moved because it was used in a movie.
Like which one?
Seal?
Seal,
the guy from
yes,
Britain.
the guy with the scar.
The guy with the scar.
Yeah, Kiss from a Rose or something like that.
That song, it had performed terribly when they released the album.
Yes.
Until the movie director of Batman listens to it and is like, I can use this in the end credits. They didn't even give him enough money. It was like, of the budget, this is how much has remained. I will take it. And because the album had performed terribly, he took on the money. But then the song ended up being a huge success, best of the movie. So when you hear such success stories, so for us it's like, okay, how do we now interpret that in a Ugandan setting, in an African setting?
Who do you have on the Ugandan market that has been able to do that?
That has been able to do that, it has been tricky, because now the thing about the movie industry, where there are different markets, is the distribution side of things. So you find that Hollywood movie is globally distributed in different territories. Yet an African movie is probably distributed in the Ugandan market, and then also the East African market, and a few extra African countries. But if you look at songs that were licensed in Queen of Katwe, there is a duo that was called Young Kadamam and Hab. I hope I'm pronouncing it well. They had a song called Rolex, but then they did another one later. This song, they licensed it to Disney, and it even came out on the Disney YouTube channel. And if you look at how that song performed, it performed insane numbers. Because what we did, we got the song and then we wrote an article on our website and we embedded the YouTube link. Even on our website, it was one of the most reached out articles.
You gave the song more mileage through the article.
Correction, I'm not the one who licensed the song, but I'm giving an example. Like guys who licensed their songs to a Queen of Katwe movie that has a Disney behind it, a Disney budget, a Disney marketing, a Disney reach, because it has a global reach. They saw a huge jump in their songs, especially online. Now for us, because we are not seeing the mathematics behind, we are seeing the mathematics at the front. Like a YouTube, you can see, this song, it has come out on a Disney channel, and then it is performing this much compared to how their normal songs are performing. You can see the difference. Yeah. So that's how sometimes the mechanics work. And I hope I have answered your rights question, right?
Yeah, kind of. there's so much to ask about.
There's so much to unpack.
We can move along. Yeah. Do you rap?
I know.
Are you sure?
No.
I had a rumor that you used to rap.
No. I've never rapped in my life. And it's one question I get a lot, because when I walk into offices, people are like, you attacked in, why are you talking to us about hip hop?
Yeah.
And then they're like, where did this love come from? Europe? I'm like, no.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Like, where does it come from? Like,
I think I've always been a fan of rap music, pretty much. I've always been a fan of rap music, especially Ugandan rap music, because when you listen to what guys are doing and what they're able to write and put it out there, it's so amazing. And it's not even Ugandan rap, even Ugandan poetry. When you listen to what people are doing, you're like, oh my God, you can do that. For me, it's fascinating. It's amazing.
so you saw talent, which played around with your hobby, and then you saw an opportunity to push it to the next level.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you did events, which one of them was the Hip Hop Awards.
Yeah.
How did you go about making the event happen? Like, what is the backside to that? Because we just see awards and we think you wake up in the morning, you talk to a lawyer, register a company, and then you say awards, venue, trophies. This is how you vote. Game over. Sure.
Yeah. So one thing I've always said, and one thing I've always told people is that if you can handle the pressure of an event, you can survive any other kind of pressure. That's from what I've learned. Because the awards, an event was a different type of pressure. So first of all, the awards, most people looked at the event, but for us, it was a 6 months project.
Wow.
6 months you are mobilizing the artists, 6 months you are mobilizing the fans, 6 months you are talking to sponsors. Some are willing to come on board, some are saying give us some time, all that. You are juggling all that because you are trying to make sure the D-Day is spot on, and because it's the awards, it's a gradual process. Like there are different stages, and at every stage you have to make sure each stakeholder is taken care of, each stakeholder is not complaining. So from the submissions, artists submitting their music, after submitting their music, you engaging the judges to be like, hey, I want you to sacrifice a week, and you go through 10,000 hours of content and then come up with the dopest 5 people out of each category. Then from there, announcing the nominees and mobilizing fans to vote, and also dealing with artists who feel like they were cheated, they should have been nominated. And as you are doing all this side, you are dealing with service providers at every stage. Hey, the guy who is designing the graphics, the guy who is doing the animations, the guy who's going to do the trophies. He's like, I want a deposit in advance.
With money, you're just trying to find.
And you are handling all these things as they come to you. And one thing in the creative industry is that you have to do everything before people come on board to do things with you. What I mean by that
you have to have the framework.
Yeah. What I mean by that, today, Sami-K, you are going to be the guy who is going to pitch to sponsors. Tomorrow, you are going to go on radio and do PR for the awards. The other day, you are going to be the one who is moderating a press conference. The other day, you are going to be the guy who is managing the stage. You are the guy who is going to be dealing with hospitality of the artists who have come. If you have an international artist who has come through to grace the awards. So you have to do, and then also you are the guy who is writing proposals, you are the guy who is doing the accounts, so you have to manage all these different departments as one person. And it's in the creative sector, that's how it has always been for the longest. If you think about it, if a guy started a film company, chances are he's the one who is doing everything until when he has some money to hire extra people. So that's why I'm like, if you can manage the pressure of an event, then you can manage to survive in other things and maneuver. So one thing that was a challenge to us was sort of like explaining to sponsors that hip hop is worth investing in.
Oh yeah,
hip hop is worth putting money in, and here is how you can make your money back. And for us, it was every year we had to prove it. Every year we had to prove it, year in, year out. It was a fresh battle. Even the sponsors you had on board, you have to go to them afresh and be like, hey, this year, this is what we are trying to do, and this is how we think you can leverage this thing. I won't lie, it wasn't an easy road. I mean, there's a year I was moderating a press conference, and my partner I was working with came to me and whispered to me, hey, guess what? The hotel just gave away the venue because we've delayed to pay. And this is like a week to the event, and you are speaking to members of press. You can't change the venue. So in that moment, I just laughed at myself. And then after the press conference, we walk out, and one of the sponsors asked me, how is everything going? I tell him, we're okay. And then he looks at me, he's like, you are either good at what you do or you are lying to me, because every time I ask you, you tell me everything is okay. And then after I went to the venue and I'm like, okay, I need to find a solution because right now it's too late to change the venue. So we have had those moments like that where something just comes and hits you in the face, but you have to persevere, you have to work your way through it. But I would say a team, if you have a team, it can you can sort of like work it out. Everyone shares ideas and you figure it out. So a team, and because I believe in people, because people are the ones who put you in certain places, people are the ones who push you to a certain level in life. So I've always put a lot of value on people. I've placed a lot of value on people. Of course, sometimes people can shake you up a bit and then they test your faith in humanity, but such is life.
That was actually my following question. What your relationship is like with artists. I know that people say artists are difficult people, but I think artists are very special people, special in a way that all creatives, they see things a different way. That people perceive them as proud, as as many things, and it's because they hold their art so dear. And some of them have been put down so many times that they're their own promoter now, saying, I'm the baddest guy you can ever have, because he's been told you're nothing, and he's saying, I am the baddest, to counter what you're saying. So you find that their personalities are very challenging to average people who are not artists. How have you found that, and how would you deal with a space like that?
So one thing I've learned about creatives is that any person who creates something out of nothing is a special person. Let's start with the biggest person of them all. God creates something out of nothing. So I mean, you can see his level he's operating at. And then you bring it down to us, the human beings, the creatives. I mean, the guy is going to go in studio, or he's going to wake up and then put something on paper, write something that is really mind-blowing. So I find that a lot of creatives, their creation process is borderline spiritual. Because this is someone who's creating something out of nothing. They are borderline spiritual. So when I'm approaching them from that angle.
What do you mean borderline spiritual?
Borderline spiritual, what I mean by that is that when people are creating, it's like they're being vulnerable.
Yes.
They are tapping into their experience, they are tapping into their pain, they are tapping into their joy, they are tapping into their sadness, and they are willing to share this.
To be vulnerable.
Yeah, they're willing to share this with the rest of the world.
Yes.
So if they're willing to share all that with the rest of the world, and then the world doesn't receive it, or the world receives it well, depending on how the world has received it, there's always going to be the way they react to that. So for me, I feel like that is borderline spiritual. Like you've created something out of your experience, out of your pain, your sadness, your joy. And you are doing that to make the rest of us relate to your story, or you are doing that to comfort us, or you are doing that so that we can celebrate. So you are tapping into your pain so that us we can celebrate in your pain.
You can celebrate my pain.
Yeah. So that's how I view creatives, and that's how I like to approach them. So I let creatives create. That's the first thing I do. Even when they ask me for advice, what do you think about this? I'm like, hey, you are the guy who is creating me. I'm the guy who's supposed to take what you've created and look for someone who is willing to pay for it. And that's how I work with them. Like, hey, create, me bring the final product, and then we see if it works or if it doesn't work. And that's how I have worked with them. That's how I've approached it, because I try to explain to them, like, however much you are trying to keep this thing pure and all that, because you've invested some level of money to make it into a final product that people can consume, you kind of want something out of it back. If you've put 500 shillings, you definitely want 1,000 shillings back out of it. So me and you, let's find a middle ground where you still able to create, and me, I'm still able to put it out to the rest of the world,
and make some money on the side while doing it.
Yeah.
So what have you found spaces where it's been so hard to work with artists, and what's your approach in those spaces?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I found those spaces. I've come to learn that in the past I haven't been good dealing with that. Normally, what I tend to do is I tend to walk away. If, let's say, I've done a project with Sami-K and probably I've invested 60% of what has made the project materialize, and then we sort of like have a disagreement, we fail to see eye to eye, I sort of like, you know what, keep everything, I'm good, let me move on to the next thing and try and figure out a way of making it work. But I've been sat down after that's not good, and I'm trying to sort of like find out of dealing with it and making it work, because guys are like, but you invested all this much and you're willing to walk away. I'm like, guys, if we've done that, I believe we can do something better. But I've been trying, I like to call it sort of like conflict resolution in a way. So I've been trying to get better at that, and then also making sure I have legal in whatever I do.
So there's always contractual obligation.
There's contractual obligation. We can always go back to paper to see that, okay, this is where we went wrong, and this is how we can move forward for certain cases. But of course, I like to call it school fees. I've been burnt a lot.
So you've been paying school fees.
I've been paying school fees to learn this, because you learn on the job. So that and when you're growing up, you hear a lot of cliches. Experience is the best teacher. You're like, hey, I'm just doing this for the English test. But when you get into actual life,
is a bad teacher.
when you get into actual life, you're like, hey, whoever said that was right, because hey, experience has taught you some good things, some bad things.
What's the thing that keeps you going? Because the space you're in is a space that is very delicate, very emotionally demanding, and it also requires for you to have a straight head on your shoulders. Otherwise, if you're almost doing that dance between intellect and emotion, which is a very hard one, because you'll find some people operating very intellectually and others are operating very emotionally, which seems to be what you implied by I just walk off, because you're like, man, it has hurt me, but I don't want to deal with this mess. We can part ways. And you know, what has kept you going in those spaces? Because those are things that are very hurting. They can be very wounding, which can then determine the path of your career or the path of your actions and dealings with people in business.
So because the position I'm in, I'm speaking for creatives.
Yes.
I've come to learn, or I came to sort of like terms with it early on, in the sense that I'm serving something that's bigger than me. So if it's the tribe doing stuff for hip hop, the thing I tell myself is that hip hop is bigger than us. So we are here to add a building block so that it reaches a certain level, and then someone else will add on something at a later stage. So that's how I've sort of like approached everything, and that's how I've sort of like defined my purpose or our purpose, in the sense that if we get into a working relationship with Sami-K, yes, we can define the legalities on paper, but then when I go back on my desk and I'm thinking by myself, I'm going to look for, in that our arrangement, I'm going to find for the bigger thing that is bigger than me. So in a way that is sort of like to check myself, to be like, hey, yes, we are doing this, but Sami-K's vision is bigger than you. So if you are here, make sure you are serving that vision and make sure you fulfill that vision. So that's how we've managed to sort of like, especially in situations where we partner with creatives, to sort of like be like, okay, we are doing a podcast where we are sharing knowledge with the rest of the industry, sort of like give people a pathway. So in such a case, I ask myself, what's the bigger thing in that situation? And at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, the industry we are talking about, the artists we are talking about are bigger than us, so we are here to serve them. So as long as I remind myself that you are here to serve the bigger cause or the bigger vision of someone you're working with, I find that it is easy to keep going, to be like, hey, this is the vision, this is the purpose we're here to do, let's keep going. And then, like I said earlier, I place a lot of value on people. So the people I'm working with, I value them in the sense that I don't want to let them down, because there are situations where they will look at you for answers, and you have to have the answers. If you don't have the answers, look for them and then provide those answers. So I place a lot of value on people, and I always want to, at least a certain extent, have the answers when people come to me to be like, okay, how do we go about this? How do we solve this? In a way, it's tiring and it is tasking.
Very tiring.
But then again, I believe that's the purpose probably God put me here to do on earth. Yeah.
You're talking about purpose, vision, bigger picture, putting other people before you. These are principles that sound very faith-based, very Christian-like, by the book. What's your background on that? Are you like a minister, a Christian? Where do these principles come from, and how do you implement them really? Without losing yourself and your beliefs, and and saying, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person in this space, which is a very hard thing to put the others before you.
Yeah. So, first of all, I'm a Catholic man. Catholic man. I try to make. I'm not. How can I say? You're not going to find me in a Catholic church.
Yes.
But in my time, I'll find time to speak to the man upstairs to be like, hey, this is what is happening. What like, how can we solve this? I'm a Catholic man, and then also for me, it's also like a part of the people. When I say people, is their thing is family for me.
Okay.
I'm a man who, like, at least twice every 2 days or every 3 days, I have to check in with my parents to be like,
That's
hey,
beautiful.
this is what I'm dealing with, or this is what's going on, like, because I believe they have seen more things than I have. Probably they haven't seen the internet more than I have.
Oh yeah.
But I try to check in because they always have that perspective of sort of like, this is the other angle you're not looking at. And apart from parents, my friends, in the sense that there are a couple of friends that I always reach out to because they always have I like describing them in the sense that when I'm viewing at something, I'm viewing it in 2-dimensional. So for them, they're going to come with that 3-dimensional, and they're going to explain things to you in 3D, and you'll be like, oh, I didn't see that. So such friends, I try to make sure I keep them around, and I call them as much as I can. And I'm sure most of them are tired of me.
Because you're constantly checking in
I'll
with them
constantly call them.
Yeah.
I'll constantly put them on the side if we're in a public gathering. I'll constantly reach out to them in a way. So for me, it's those 3 things. I always have to check in with the man upstairs, talk to my parents, and then also the friends, the core people that I work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
What have been some of your biggest disappointments? Everybody talks about success. We're getting there. What's the downside to these things you're doing?
The downside, I would say again, it's people. It's people.
What about people?
You are going to meet someone, and then you are going to trust them to play their part.
Yes.
Because the way I work in a way that if I trust Sami-K to do ABCD, I don't want to micromanage Sami-K to do ABCD. I want to give Sami-K full control to do whatever I've trusted him to do. If we had agreed that, okay, after 2 days later we meet and then we evaluate, let's meet 2 days later with some progress that has been made, and then we correct the things. So I like to say it's people, unfortunately, because I'm still quote unquote healing from a certain situation. A person I trusted not so long ago, a few years ago, double crossed me.
What did they do?
I'm still healing, so I'm not yet ready to share.
To know what you're healing for.
I'm not yet ready to share on the public platform. I'm still healing, but it's people, honestly. But again, what I try to do is that I try not to lose faith in people so much, because if you lose faith in people so much, you are going to end up at the end of the day doing things alone. And that's one thing I've been accused of doing. Hey, you like doing things alone, but then at the same time, I'm like, hey, I'm doing that because ABCD happened. But also, I've learned to sort of like lose control on certain things, sort of like allow people in to be like, hey, you can do this for me, or I trust you to do this. But biggest disappointment or me losing it has been people, honestly.
People.
Yeah.
And what are the key lessons you've taken from this? I know sometimes I tell people normally There are unfortunate events that happen
Yeah.
to everybody.
Yeah.
But the win is that you kind of try to squeeze the juice out of those events and have a positive side to it, which would be, this was very unfortunate, but because of that I learned A, B, C, D, and these are the benefits of the lessons. What are some of those that you can highlight and say, I had a situation that went south on this, but I learned, or it brought me to a space where I have this benefit?
Yeah. So for me, one of the lessons I've learned, or sort of like cleared things for me, is once that situation happened to me, I had sort of like it brought me closer back to God. It brought me closer back to God. It made me even more prayerful than I was. It made me more prayerful than I was because I had to look for answers. Then number two, it made me give my family more time than I was giving them.
Okay.
So a lot of times, most of my projects. So the way I operate sometimes, I don't like talking about things that haven't materialized yet.
Okay.
Things that are not a success yet, things that are still in a pipeline. I don't like doing that. And so that meant that my family would only get to know things when they have seen them online.
Yes.
Like I remember one time we were doing a press run for the awards, and then I was on NBS, and then my nephews called my mom, and then they're like, hey, we just saw our uncle on TV. And then she was like, eh? How? What?
What are you
Talk to
doing
my
with it?
dad, and then my dad was like, eh? On TV? He was doing what? Talking about what? They call me, and then I tell them this thing I'm working on, the awards, and they're like, you're doing that work and we don't know about it. We don't know how we can come in to help. So for the longest, I've been sort of like operating like that. So now, once that thing happened in my life, I've gone back to open up more to family, to be like, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is this is the challenge I'm facing. What do you think I should do? Things like that. So again, for me, those have been my lessons, and the takeaways that at the end of the day, when things get rough, you'll probably have family that is going to be in your corner. When things get rough, the number one therapy you can sort of like have is probably God, and you talking through everything with God and reflecting with God and things like that.
Working with the entertainment industry is a very hard terrain. You find that it comes with a lot of stress. It comes with a lot of diversions. You have people becoming alcoholics, people becoming extremely promiscuous because of the pressures that come with the industry, the fame, the connections, the access to people, and all this. How have you managed to have this?
Yes.
You don't look like you were wilding out last night.
Yeah. So one of the things is that when it comes to working with creatives, sometimes we look for creatives whose values we sort of like let me say relate or identify.
Like which ones?
Like identify with.
Like
For example,
values?
you had Solomon Basota on this podcast.
Yes.
We work with Solomon
Oh,
Basota.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And when you talk to Solomon Basota, when you talk to her, sometimes when you're talking to someone, they won't tell you their values, but you can see how they respond to questions, how they're approaching certain things. And then you're like, okay, this is someone I'm willing to work with. You can even see some of their past work.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. There's a lady called Maritza. She's a poet. So we did a podcast with her.
I didn't know she was a poet. I know her for TV and radio.
Yeah, we had her on our podcast, and then the podcast was supposed to come out, I think, the next week, but we had filmed a side clip with her where she's doing a poem, and then I sent it to her, but then she's offline. For a couple of days, I'm like, hey, how come this person is offline? We've been communicating. I call her friends, and she's like, no, you keep trying her. She will come back online. So she comes back online. She's like, hey, I take time off to sort of like shut down everything and recoup.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, wow, that is something I can want to be a part of. I can relate to. If someone in this industry is willing to shut down and shut the noise around them and be like, hey, this is my time, that is someone I can sort of like operate with. Because yes, it's good to operate 24/7, but then you burn out, and when you burn out, people will come to you and you won't be able to deliver to your best abilities. So certain things like that, the small things I pick on and be like, hey, this is someone I can work with. This is someone I can probably see a long-term vision with. And then also for me personally, I try to check myself. For example, I think 2-3 years ago, I started fasting during the Lent period. And I told myself, hey, I'm going to go off alcohol in this period. And since then, I haven't gone back off alcohol. When people ask me, I tell them I'm on a break. So it's been like
alcoholic break.
yeah, like 2-3 years. I keep telling them I'm on a break, but deep down, I'm like, maybe I've given up on it. Maybe I'll come back to it. But then for me, it's more of like check yourself in the sense that okay, you've probably left a shoot at midnight because you are drinking at the shoot. You have a bad morning, you can't attend to the work you are supposed to attend to, but then if you cut it out, you're going to go, but then at 6 a.m. you're still effective. You're going to answer the calls you're supposed to answer by 7, by 8, attend to the things you're supposed to attend to. And also the other thing I try to do, I try to sort of like jog a bit. People laugh at me, but I'm like, I can try to do that once in a while. I try to exercise. So during those periods of time, like let's say when I'm exercising or jogging, it's more of like a reflective situation of like, okay, I'm with my thoughts. What have we accomplished? What have we failed to accomplish?
You're
things like
evaluating
that.
yourself in that.
And then also, I think the past 2 years I also changed my habit in the sense that by 3 a.m. I try to make sure I'm up. I try to make sure at least I read one thing, whether it's an article, whether it's a chapter of a book. I try to make sure I do something, if it's maybe, because now like of late I've been doing practice pitches because there's something I'm trying to pitch for. Yeah, I pitch a bit. So it's been a situation where I change my habits and then reflect on them and see if the changes I've made are effective.
Okay, so I got told you Skyline Media, you're doing production. How is that going, and what especially do you specialize in?
So Skyline Media is a creative agency.
Yes.
So it's a creative agency.
Creative by when you say creative, to a person who is not in your space, I'm seeing dancers, I'm seeing painters.
So creative means, in this case, we mean we are offering creative services to organizations, to companies, and to individuals who need these services. So that's like marketing, communications, production.
Production of music,
production of TVCs, podcasts. We of late we onboarded our new head of business development, and because I did computer science and then turned head of business development is like he's like now we have to add the IT component. Now we onboarded software companies. We sell their software services here in the country, like Adobe. Beautiful. So we try to be a creative agency in the sense that when you come to us, we are a complete package. If you want an event, we have someone to handle an event. If you want digital services, we have someone who should handle the digital services. If you want a song that you can add to your campaign, we have someone to sort of like deal with that. In brief, it's more of like we looked at it in the sense that how can we bridge the gap between creatives and the people who have the income to pay these creatives. So that's we are like the guys who. So
you're bringing the creatives closer to the money.
Yes. So it's more of like, okay, you are a creative, you just want to do your video, you don't want to deal with this guy telling you invoices, telling you withholding tax, telling you all these things. So we'll be like, okay, yes, we shall take on that responsibility. We'll make sure that work is executed, work is delivered on time, and people are paid on time.
Okay. Yeah. What's been your most exciting experience working in these spaces, creative spaces, from events to production to pitching to
honestly for me
with artists and all?
For me, it's every time the idea goes from just being an idea on paper to it materializing and hitting the goals and targets. For example, you work with Israel. We just did a Bank of Africa TV advert with him. And it was a situation where we went into the meeting and the client told us, this is what we are trying to do. Can you guys do it? And Israel is like, yes, we can do it. And we executed in 5 days and we delivered, and the client was satisfied. So for me, such moments, I'm like, there's some sort of like fulfillment that comes from that, to be like, we did that. And once that fulfillment is done, we're like, okay, what's next? What's the next one we can work on? What's the next? And the idea is the next one, let's be better than what we did this time. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Time is fast spent, and I don't know if you have any parting shots.
My parting shots are simple. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
I've been seeing the podcast for a while. I was like, I want to be on that
But
platform.
you don't like and follow.
No, I know the struggle of the digital spaces we're in and where traction comes from. So I've been following this podcast not only from the work you put out, but then also from the other side, because part of the team members you have, we work with them
on the production side.
So for me, my parting shots is that you are building an important platform, a
Thank
platform
you,
that most of us can go to sort of like look for answers. Because like I said, experience, you may be going through something, you think it's you alone who is going through it, but then someone else has gone through it. So when you come to such a platform and someone says something, and then you're like, oh, I was dealing with a challenge like that. When we see people like Solomon, whom we've worked with, also come on such platforms, we are like, this is a really important platform, not only for us, the Ugandan audience, but then also for in a broader sense, because I believe the Ugandans in the diaspora.
Yes.
Yeah. And even people in the diaspora in general, because this is a live podcast. This is something, So thanks for building this platform, and continue building it. And thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's been wonderful having you on short notice. Israel over there knows very creative and insightful people. So when he says this person, you surely have to check him out. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your passion for the hip hop industry that for a long time many Ugandans thought those are wannabes. Nothing's gonna happen. But to see that it's growing and people are thinking of Grammy nominations and all that, international collaborations, Burna Boy, and it's your what will I call it? Your little stones that are added to the brick that builds the whole thing, and that's key. Many people look at the building, they never look at the foundation or the gravel that gets put on the foundation. But this is very insightful that we can know that there's people who are still passionate about building brands, building in a space that everybody just cleans their mud on and continues with what's popular, and working hard to build it to a place that it's recognizable and appreciated, and where the artists will feel appreciated, where the market will feel like these guys actually have something worth listening to that they didn't give ears before. And I'm grateful that you can do it on this podcast, and thank you for coming.
Thanks once again.
Thank you. Well, thank you for watching and listening and tuning in. Please keep supporting us. You can support us financially on the Cash App. You can share mobile money. You can share with a friend. You can say something in the comments, suggestions, feedback, whatever you need that you think will add to this. We're very grateful, and we're willing to listen to you as you listen to us. God bless you, and we're out. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the LyfeBe podcast with Sami-K. Your support means the world to us. Please leave a comment, subscribe, and share to help us grow and continue bringing you valuable content. We appreciate you.